How are you now? Good, and you? Not so bad. So this is the new old wood lathe, and doing some remounted jig gating. So he's got this little cast iron flared base here, and had to be attached to something to hold the motor, so I used some scrap ply there. But that basically left the whole thing just kind of floating in the breeze. And there wasn't enough connection between here, a couple of screws here, and this to pick the whole thing up as a unit and move it around. So I do want to use my workbench for stuff other than a fancy lathe table. So I've got a chunk of melamine here. Hopefully strong enough to do this a little bit. The lathe bed itself should end up being kind of a structural member when it's being moved around. Structural member band name, perhaps. Anyway, I'm using the types of hardware I have the most of, or what's handy. Deck screws right now to bolt this in. You see these two holes here, one of these things is not like the other. This one I drilled a hole myself in the cast iron just to make a spot to put one of these. This one's got a wooden plug in it because the original holes are huge bigly, so they're kind of big fat holes, and that's no bueno for holding a deck screw. So I've been taking a chunk of old maple flooring. I'm just kind of whittling her down a little bit and drive her in the hole. Yep, needs a little more whittling. So something like this. Take a mallet and just whale it through the cast iron there. Kind of work it back out. It's basically like a dowel jig. A doweling jig almost. There's a big wooden plug. So I'll go cut that off in the vise, drive her back in. So there you go. Cut off a little dowel. We'll just gently place that back in. And where's me drill bits? Leave that there. And just pre-drill her a little for the screw. Perfection. And this makes a nice little home. Kind of a big squishy washer plug thing. Now that's fastened through this piece of ply, which brings this end of the bed up even with the other end. And this piece of melamine, and hopefully not the bench. Nope, not bolted through to the bench, so that's good. There we go. It has been moved. It's on the shop skateboard. I weighed it, and it's pretty much exactly 100 pounds as it sits, without the tool rest or the tailstock installed. Those are tucked away under here right now. So there we go. Now we can get back to work with the bench. Have a couple of upgrades to do. So I'll start on those. Thank you very much. Update the first. Put some casters on. Some lockable heavy. Where's your camera? There. Lockable heavy duty casters. These are rated for like 130, 150 pounds a piece. Something like that. I just weighed the bench. That was a tricky maneuver in and of itself. But she tops out at about 190 pounds. as it sits right there. So one man shuffling this around is a bit finicky. Just be mindful not to stick your toes under it. And when I had it tipped up the other way, I toe screwed it in this way a bit. Just a couple of deck screws. Because this whole upper surface, the whole work surface, is just kind of floating there. And since I'm not a real precision maker, it's not floating perfectly evenly against these cross braces. So it was kind of a hollow under here. So now at least it's mechanically tapped in on those 3 cross braces. And again, still easy to remove. It's basically 3 screws and the 4 these things, threaded rods. 3 screws and the 4 threaded rods, and you could pop the whole top right off of this again, or half of the top, and replace it. So whatever, that's good. Slight improvements. Giving her a little test here if the caster's locked. Of course the floor's uneven and everything too, but there's always a slight hump down the middle where it's squeezed together, so I don't mind playing a little off here just as a test. But that works beautifully. It's a little tiny bit less dead than it was on the without the casters, but the casters also bring it up about 2 inches, 2.5 inches, which is a much nicer height for me. So I built it a little short, kind of on purpose, kind of just happenstance. But that's great. Take that any day of the week. Ah yes, and a gratuitous big shaving off of my $12 thrift store plane. There you go. Have a good one.